President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act to also benefit African countries and not just the United States of America. Economists say the markets have welcomed the medium-term budget policy statement tabled by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. And the Springbok World Cup Trophy Tour touches down in Durban today. A very good afternoon. If you've just joined us, we're coming to you live from our studios here in Johannesburg. Welcome to Week in Review. Now, this is the program where we review some of the biggest stories to come out of the week. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabala. President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act to also benefit African countries and not just the United States of America. The South African president has expressed concern that AGOA is currently slanted towards America's favor. President Ramaphosa has called on the delegates at the AGOA 20th conference in Johannesburg to come up with proposals that will see finished products being exported from the continent as opposed to raw minerals only.
President Ramaphosa has called for the extension of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, but this time around for a longer period as opposed to a year. Ramaphosa says an extension by a year hinders Africa's economic growth prospects as investors are skeptical of the period of the agreement. Just like US President Joe Biden, Ramaphosa has given the green light for the extension of the act, but with conditions.
I would like you to look at the extension of our renewal of AGOA for a sufficiently lengthy period for it to act as an incentive to investors to build new factories on the African continent.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says the time for foreign countries to export raw minerals from the continent is over. American companies have for years extracted Africa's raw minerals without any benefit to the continent. But now calls of change are being made, that Africa can no longer be an extraction point for foreign economies.
Gone should be the days when Africa is just seen as a source of rock, soil, dust being exported out of our continent. We now want to produce the products that are finished or near finished that are utilized in other parts of the world. We want to earn full value for our products.
President Ramaphosa says the days of AGOA being only beneficial to Americans are over.
So what we should be doing is to come up with proposals and suggestions on how we can enhance it and how we can make AGOA more effective for both sides. For the United States also benefits and Africa also benefits. So it is a mutually beneficial relationship, what I call a smart partnership.
The president also says the AGOA Act has helped grow the African economy from manufacturing, textile, automotive, and agricultural industries. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has maintained a tough stance on the bailing out of financially struggling state-owned entities. He has announced additional conditions for financial assistance given to entities with a weak balance sheet. The minister has also added that the social distress relief grant will be extended by another year. Godongwana was delivering the medium-term budget policy statement.
Despite Transnet's deteriorating freight rail performance and slow port operations requiring billions of rands, Godongwana says he can't dish out money easily. The entity requires billions of rand to restore its freight capacity and increase the volume of its locomotives.
We've not closed the door. We are realistic that at some point we need to find a solution for Transnet. The immediate solution is that everybody knows in this room that next week Transnet will have to redeem some debt.
He's also attached new strict conditions to Eskom's debt relief program to ensure public funds are used for their intended purpose.
Should Eskom defy any of the conditions, the loan would not be converted into equity. The Eskom Debt Relief Amendment Bill, which is we are tabling, seeks to enhance that enforceability on the conditions agreed.
The Social Relief Distress Grant has been extended further for another year. This while government is still pondering on social security policy reforms and funding model.
34 billion is allocated to extend the COVID-19 social relief of distress grant by another year. Over the medium term, a provisional allocation is retained while a comprehensive review of the entire social grant is finalized.
Meanwhile, Godongwana says nearly 70 applications from municipalities have been received requesting that their Eskom debt be written off. Those that have been approved have a combined debt totaling more than 56 billion rand.
The ultimate goal is the profound transformation of these municipalities by enabling them to build financial resilience, amplify their capacity to generate sustainable revenue, and rekindle a culture of paying for service rendered.
Godongwana announced the expenditure cuts of about 21 billion rand for this year. He says the expenditure cuts are lower than the money that was returned to the national fiscus in the previous 2 financial years. Lula Mamatya, SABC News, Parliament.
Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, Durban is part of the Springbok World Cup Trophy Tour as the national rugby team celebrates their victory across the country. The Springboks bus will travel through KwaMashu Township as well as the city centre, drawing large crowds as seen in other cities. Now, let's turn to our reporter Vusi Khumalo for more details. Good afternoon. Vusi, we understand the tour bus is currently in Pinetown. How's the atmosphere there this afternoon?
Yes, indeed. We are in Pinetown trekking the bus with the players. As you can see in your visuals, the fans, supporters of the Springboks, being the public, having come out in full force in their numbers, giving support to the Springbok players as they are also waving and also carrying that Webb Ellis trophy, parading it for the fans to see and prove that indeed the trophy is within their hold and that this is their 4th title of the Rugby World Cup since winning it for the first time in 1995, 2007, 2019. And then now, back-to-back, 2019 and 2023, we are the victors again. We are currently on Kashana Kuzwayo Drive, where that is cutting through the Pinetown, and we are also on our way to Durban. But I must say that it's still early days for this bus procession to get to Durban, because we still have to navigate through heavy traffic because it's a chock-a-block traffic where we are driving. A number of people have come out in their numbers to greet and also wave onto the supporters, the champions of the world in terms of the rugby that has just been recently or concluded in France just a week ago. We saw the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, alongside his players, led by Siya Kolisi, the team captain, who is not with us here today because of some bereavement. We are told to a family member, but surely he is with us emotionally wherever he is. Here are some players. These are the Springbok players who made all the difference in the past. There's Eben Etzbeth, there's also Makazole Mampimpi, there's also Ox Nche, there is Jaden Hendricks, there's Ox Nche, and also a host of other players who are on this bus as well. Bongi Mbonambi, who has got strong links to KwaZulu-Natal. I must also make a mention that the majority of these players who are currently on the bus, they are the Sharks players. Most of them who are in this bus, they are Sharks support players. Surely it has been made to ensure that the Sharks supporters who have come out in their numbers, joining also other supporters in KwaZulu-Natal, to ensure that they also see the Sharks players before their eyes, lifting this trophy aloft to a rapturous applause by the supporters out here in Pinetown. As you can see, young and old, black and white, they've come out in their numbers or in full force to ensure that they do catch a glimpse of their heroes as they pass through this bus, also waving the South African flag, trying to steal a moment or two because they are trying to throw their T-shirts so that they can have the signature or the autographs or by the players such as Eben Etzbeth, as you are seeing him making that all-important autograph onto the T-shirts of the fans who are throwing their soccer balls, rugby balls, as well as T-shirts and other clothing for the rugby players, to ensure that those rugby T-shirts and clothing have got the autographs of their heroes. We are still out here in Pinetown, navigating through various roads and streets such as Crompton and Shepstone, that is navigating or cutting through this suburb of Pinetown, which is situated west of Durban. Just earlier on, we went past KwaDabeka Township via Dumsani Makhaya, a drive that is coming from KwaMashu. I must also make a mention that police had their hands full trying to man an uncontrollable crowd as people went crazy, were very in the manner in which they did it. It was very difficult for police to man or control them, but eventually they were able to push them back so that the bus can pass through. So indeed, we are still here in Pinetown. And also with regards to KwaMashu, it did not only go through KwaMashu, it also went past Besta and adjacent to Phoenix as well, and Tuzuma. It went through those townships, and now just before we came to Pinetown, it went through Claremont with Tabega, as those townships are close by Pinetown. We are now in Pinetown, where we are seeing quite a number of people who have come out in their numbers to ensure that they do support the Springboks, as some of them have already alluded to the fact that when the Boks do qualify for the next World Cup in the next 4 years, the supporters will be ensuring that they'll be throwing their full weight behind the Springboks. And also one of the things that has been mentioned by the Springbok players, they are they were saying that it was great hearing that back home there are legends and legends of supporters who are throwing their weight behind them. And then that's one of the reasons they have won this World Cup for the fans back home, as we are seeing today with this the Boks players coming out here and showing and parading this all-important Webb Ellis Trophy to their jubilant supporters who are still not tiring, having lining up the streets. Some of them have been following us from KwaDabeka, about 4 to 5 kilometers that we have traversed, but the fans are showing no signs of tiring. They are ensuring that they are giving their support to the Springboks. As I was mentioning earlier on, that the bus currently has got the majority of the Sharks players. We've got 6 to 7 players who are currently on the books of the local team, the Sharks, which is KwaZulu-Natal franchise, playing in a national rugby. Of course, there are players from other provinces, from the Free State, there are players from the Bulls, and also players from other provinces such as Mpumalanga, as well as Gauteng. And also I must say that it does have an international mix, because we do have players who are currently playing or playing their trade overseas in countries such as Japan, which has also hosted the World Cup in 2019. We also have players playing their trade in England and also in France, as well as, you may recall that Siya Kolisi, the team captain, and also who was in the books of the Sharks, will be on his way soon after this trophy parade, will be making his way to France to play for the Racing 92, a team that has just signed for. So will be appearing the colors of a French rugby team there very soon after this Boks victory parade in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, we know that the Boks tomorrow will be in the Eastern Cape, in East London. So that's where the preparations currently are already in place. And also I must also make a mention about the security being very tight here on our way on the streets, to ensure that everything on the streets is narrow and that no incident do occur on the way. We haven't had anything, and we've gone past many places here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, here in Durban, where we started at Umhlanga, going crisscrossing the areas of Durban North, Lalusha, and then we went to Red Hill, before we went to Besta, Tuzuma, went to KwaMashu, KwaDabeka, Claremont, and then now we are in Pinetown. So very soon we'll be going towards Durban, where other supporters as well, crowds and crowds of supporters in their numbers, who are currently watching proceedings from live television, so that by the time they come there, they are being welcomed in a right way. Currently, we also do have our journalists who are there as well. SABC is also ensuring that we cover every corner of the route, all the way to right at the end, which is the ICC, Inkosi Albert Luthuli International Convention Center. That's where all the proceedings will be ending from early in the morning, just after 10. That's when the bus departed from Umhlanga Rocks. We took a long stretch of Umhlanga Rocks Drive to where we are now. As we are hearing sirens with police ensuring that they are on the side, and also some of them are leading us. There is also a Metro Police K9 unit, which is also known as a dog unit, is also here as well. Many police units are here to ensure that there's no incident that occurs. Otherwise, all the supporters and fans are very happy at seeing their heroes before their eyes. These are the heroes who have just lifted the trophy, which is one of the biggest moments in the history of the World Cup that has just been concluded in France, in Stade de France, in Paris. That's where the final of the Rugby World Cup took place. So the country is very proud of the Boks, the achievements that have been occurred in the name of the Springboks in South Africa. So we are still passing by the streets, navigating through Pinetown streets. A number of supporters are here asking the Boks players to make autographs on those items they are throwing at the direction of the Springboks. Young and old, all the races coming out in their numbers. As you can see, we are a diverse country that is seen here today, and that is brought by the Springboks. That is ensure that the people of South Africa do come together, and they can come together. They can also work together in all spheres of sectors of the country. So that's what the Springboks have shown and proved to the world, that the sports can unite the people of South Africa.
Well, certainly, and the sport has united the people of South Africa. But I see the crowd is getting a bit more where you are, Vusi. Where exactly are you now in Pinetown? Because I see that the tour bus has slowed down somewhat because the numbers are getting larger and larger.
Yes, the numbers keep on growing. We are still in Pinetown. We are still on Kashana Kuzwayo Drive that is cutting through this. We are currently on Crompton Streets. We've just been to Kashana Kuzwayo Drive. We are now on Crompton Street, right in the center, or in the CBD of Pinetown. That's where we are. But the numbers, I must say, they keep on increasing. The legions of supporters are here to ensure that they do support their Boks, and police are having their hands full trying to control a crowd here, which is a bit uncontrollable at this moment. But police are really trying their level best. As you can see in your visuals, items are being thrown at the direction of the players so that they can have their autographs. Some of those items are being dropped on the floor. Police are also helping on the side as well.
All right, Vusi, thank you very much for that. We'll catch up with you a bit later on. That is our reporter, Vusi Kumalo, who's following the Springbok tour bus that is in KZN today. More news on the other side of this break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has told U.S. investors that the major problem facing the country is the capacity of the economy to service its growing debts. He was speaking virtually to SA Tomorrow Investor Conference in New York that is focused on solving the country's infrastructure and logistics constraints. Now, this is in an effort by both the SA private sector and government to attract new investors into the space. Also speaking at the event was Reserve Bank Governor Lesija Kganyago, who explained the bank's monetary policy approaches to contain core inflation and the interest rate cycle.
A discussion that seeks to bolster South Africa's position as an emerging market of choice, laying out various challenges that must be confronted in order to make the country a more attractive investment destination.
Our major problem has been growth. The size of the debt or deficit is not important. The capacity of the economy to service such a debt. So our economy is not growing fast. You can see between what we have said in our budget review, you see a slide which deals with the both growth and interest differentials. Growth is going a different way, interests are going in a different way, which suggests that the capacity of the economy to service the growing debt service cost is becoming a challenge. So we've got to contain that. But we need, on the other hand, to achieve growth.
He pointed to key areas of focus to achieve that goal: managing the electricity crisis, improving logistics in order to get goods to market efficiently, addressing the crime epidemic, improving the capacity of the state to perform, and link to that government investment. As fiscal stability becomes a big priority for Treasury, with the country's debt-to-GDP ratio expected to reach 77% by 2025-2026.
We, first and foremost, have focused on curtailing expenditure, on curtailing the whole range of measures which are intended to curtail this expenditure. We make the point, for instance, that we've got to contain the wage bill. And among other things, is voluntary severance package is to manage national attrition. There's some institutions there which are dealing with this thing. The interesting figures, they've said the national attrition in government is about 70,000 employees per annum. So you manage the wage bill, reorganize how government work, and reorganize institutions.
While the governor of the Reserve Bank explained that the country's monetary policy was anchored in an inflation-targeting framework that gives the central bank the flexibility to recalibrate its tools in order to get inflation back to target.
You have got a society that has become intolerant of inflation. But why has the society become intolerant of inflation? If you look at South Africa's headline inflation, it has risen up a bit now to 5.4. Not a train smash. We are still within target. We would like it to go towards 4.5. If you look at South Africans in this room, their inflation rate is actually standing at about 4.8 at most. The poor South Africans who are in decile 1, those poor South Africans, they are facing inflation of just over 9%. I guess by now you get the drift. Any developmental strategy that would suggest that you must tolerate high inflation is anti-poor. And this central bank is determined to protect the income of the poor.
Asked about the bank's current thinking on continued interest rate hikes in a global environment of disinflation, Kganyago offered a pragmatic approach.
And when people ask, on what basis did you justify the hiking? And, one of the things I have learned in this job is that English is more important than economics. So you check the central banks, the advanced economic central banks, they talked about keeping rates high for longer. Now they are saying higher for longer. Some of them are saying higher for long. And that is a central bank. What does that reflect? It reflects the uncertainty that the central banks are facing at the moment. And so you have to constantly look at these risks and say what we could actually do. And bring us back to our previous decision. What is clear is that the current persistent levels of inflation cannot be dealt with by monetary policy alone. And one of the things that comes is that fiscal is going to have to play the party and come to the party.
The two-day conference concludes later Friday. Shervin Brashby's SABC News, New York.
Okay, let's now take you live to the AGOA Forum in Matric, Johannesburg. This is where our international editor, Sophie Mokoena, is standing by with the very latest. Good afternoon, Sophie. Can you just talk us through some of the key conversations taking place today?
Thank you so much, Nomfundo, as we are preparing for that closing ceremony later today, where we will perhaps have a know-how or get a glimpse of what the resolutions are. We are continuing to speak to the stakeholders here, particularly the companies that are part of the exhibition in the exhibition hall. You know that the issue of exports is quite important because it is only through exporting of products to other countries where you can also generate resources in relation to strengthening the economy of South Africa. And aluminium is one product that is quite critical, but we know that there has been challenges in relation to the tariffs, but also yesterday the president saying that gone are the days where Africa is going to export its resources. They want to introduce beneficiation so that you are able to send out these products in a better form where the value chain gets better. With me, I have Dr. Nkachisang, who is going to speak to us about that sector, the aluminium. You have been part of the exhibitions, you've heard what people are saying. In terms of your perspective on aluminium, what are the issues that you'd like those who are part of the negotiations to resolve?
I think, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's important for us to firstly sketch an outline and make sure that people do understand that currently we have one of the biggest smelters in the southern hemisphere, which is Hillside. And further to that, I need to also explain that it's the only aluminium smelter that we have in the country. And the crisis that we will be faced with, should we not find each other in these conversations, is that we will possibly at some stage consider having to really reconsider doing, continuing with that business, because in its form, in its current form, there's a challenge for it to continue to exist, given all the headwinds that we have. And the conversations really should enrich an opportunity for us to be able to really see how much we can really ensure that this one asset that we have in the country continue to exist. And I think these conversations need to look at a number of aspects that we need to consider. One is that we are already challenged by the electricity factor because we need to have green power, which is it's a challenge in itself. But of course, AGOA and how we are participating in it need to look at this one commodity and look at possibility of exempting aluminium. And remember that we are already supplying about 100,000 tons of aluminium into America. And we are sure that, with the conversations that we've had, that because it's a critical mineral for America, they would want to consider importing more of it. But in its current form, it will be very challenging for us to actually, as the President said, to continue supplying it into America, whereas the benefits are not as, as congruent as what it should be. And I think that's one of the challenges that we need to deal with.
Now, when you talk about what the President said in relation to beneficiation, as people who are involved in this sector, what is the best option in terms of beneficiation?
Currently, look, if we go into exempting aluminium as it is known as a critical metal for America, and they actually want to make sure that they continue to use it in America and bring it in. Currently, as South 32 Hillside, we are already having key stakeholders that we are beneficiating, and they are already supplying some of the material, across into America. And it becomes then very important for us as a sector to make sure that this beneficiation doesn't only stagnate, but it grows, and it can only grow if the benefits that you derive from AGOA and the arrangements thereof and the exemption thereof actually makes it appetizing for us to continue to do that. And remember, when you beneficiate, you actually do it in such a way that your downstream opportunities need to grow. You cannot have a downstream beneficiation, but it's not growing, because these individuals will actually say, why are we actually being beneficiated? But the bigger part for us is that the conversations that we are having and the agreements that comes out of that is for us to be in a position where we're saying, aluminium is a critical metal for America, Aluminium, it's a mineral, it's a commodity that we have in South Africa. We want to make sure that we continue to supply, and we also want to continue to make sure that we ring fence and protect the 30,000 jobs that we have in Richards Bay. But if we are not going to go into that space, it therefore means that we will not be able to continue to exist because of its existential crisis. Because once we deal with those, we will be able then to make sure that all the benefits that we derive and the downstream opportunities that we have are cruise to that.
In terms of this commodity, the issue of energy or electricity is quite important. Currently, we don't have a reliable supply of electricity. You need a lot of power to do what you are supposed to do. I think it's the most affected sector when you have challenges such as the issue of electricity. In terms of the impact, what has been the impact to your business, this load shedding?
Look, at this stage, I don't want to say we don't have an impact, but it's not an immediate problem. But over the long time, when we look at CBAM and we look at how everything else that has to do with electricity will impact the business, and which it's something that we need to deal with currently. And there are short-term solutions that we can look at, but obviously the long-term solution and the driver should be renewables. But remember, when you go into renewables, there's also issue around backup power, because we don't have the sun all the time, we don't have wind all the time, we might have water, but we actually do not have rivers that are running all the time. And that in itself, it's a difficulty. So the one critical element that we need to consider as an industry, and I think as a global business community, we need to consider how CBAM has been formulated, the policy around that, the developing countries, how it will actually impact developing countries. Because in its current form, it actually means that developing countries will actually suffer even more. But if you actually try to do it in such a way that not only are you managing CBAM, and not only are we listening only to one sector of the community, which is the Europeans saying we want to impose CBAM, but it's almost like a collective, and everybody else buys into it and everybody else comments into it. But to come to your earlier question in terms of power is a very, very critical element to us, and we actually use a lot of power. And I always say to people, just to make it sound simpler to you, Hillside alone uses power which is equated to the whole of Durban. And you know, people would actually say, but that's a lot of power. It is a lot of power. But remember the benefits that we actually derive, not only for the economy of Richards Bay, but the economy of KwaZulu-Natal and the economy of the country. We are one of the contributors in the economy, and we actually want to make sure that we want to continue growing the economy in that way.
Thank you for your time, Doctor. There you have it. Technical issues here, but I think South Africans are adamant that they want the best out of this forum, but also looking at other challenges we are facing as a country. And I want to repeat, South Africa will have to ensure that there is reliable energy or electricity. South Africa must ensure that our infrastructure is in order, because transport is the lifeblood of commerce. Back to you in studio.
Well, certainly, Sophie, those are very critical, be it our logistics chain or the reliable energy, as you speak of there. That's international editor Sophie Mkwena out at the AGOA Forum for us this afternoon. More news on the other side of this break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, thousands of people in Durban have gathered to see the world champion Springboks parade the Webb Ellis Trophy. The Boks have visited major population centres this week following their triumph at the Rugby World Cup in France. For more on this, we're now joined by senior SABC sport producer Thando Mqoli. Thando, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon to you, Mfundo.
No, it's a pleasure to see you. I'm sure you're very tired.
Extremely.
But I suppose it's a very important time, momentous occasion. You reported at the airport when the most coveted trophy of world rugby came back to our country. Talk to us about the atmosphere there, because it was packed.
I always say it's the holy grail of rugby, because this is the trophy that everyone wants to win at least once in their lifetimes. We've won it 4 times, just to see those guys. Also seeing Rassie Erasmus walking through the entrance there and seeing those fans, all 3 tiers, filled to the rafters. Everyone, people had been there since 6 o'clock. That's when we arrived. People had come in from different parts of the country just to get a glimpse of the players and the trophy. You sort of got that feeling of nation building in practice, because you literally had different parts of society all to say, I want to see that trophy, I want to see the players. Just for a brief moment, it doesn't matter.
And then Sia emerged.
Then Sia emerged.
Goodness.
Like, Rassie was in tears. Rassie was in tears looking at all those players and seeing what their contribution to our society has been. The joy that they've managed to get for us. It's an interesting philosophy that they've got in that team, whereby Sia said, this is not for us. We won our trophy in 2019. This trophy is for the people. And like we saw Cheslin giving away his winner's medal the other day. It's stuff like that, whereby this team has literally resonated with the community in, well, different forms of life. We've seen this trophy go to Bontierville and places from affluent areas as well. That's what you're looking for in terms of...
And that's how rugby has actually evolved, because for the longest time it was a sport that was exclusively for certain communities. It wasn't even played in the most underprivileged schools, but now we have a different rugby. When we talk of rugby, it is an inclusive sport.
But that's the thing. When Rassie Erasmus crossed the Rubicon by making Sia Kolisi the permanent captain of the Boks in 2018, that was the first shift in the right direction. Then you had a captain who was singing Amakwejo.
Yes.
So that became another part of Springboks
culture.
And the rugby and culture. So all of that became, it moved society from this perception that this is a sport for a certain type of society. It now became an inclusive thing. Everyone was welcome to this party. And you did not have to act in a certain way. You came as you were. Whether you are rich or poor, do you identify with the Springboks? Do you love the Springboks? That's all you needed to do. Again, Sia was in Soweto and he was saying, what I love about this trophy going to Soweto is that I grew up in streets like this as we did. I know what it's like for that little child running next to the bus, getting inspiration that maybe you never know what I could do. It would be nice to be part of this at least once in my lifetime. You could be the next Rassie Erasmus, you could be the next Sia Kolisi. That inspiration comes from moments like this where you are running next to the bus and little seeds get planted and you never know. Sia Kolisi watched John Smith from a tavern in 2007. He watched at a tavern and he saw John Smith lifting that trophy at the very same Stade de France. Brian Habana, for example, in 1995 was at Ellis Park when the Springboks won with that drop goal by Joe Stransky. So those seeds are planted in different ways and you never know what could become of those dreams.
I want to take you back to saying that the 2019 Cup was theirs, 2023 is for the nation, but interestingly enough, they didn't expect to win in 2019. And I even listened to him speaking there at the airport that in actual fact, this one, there was no expectation mostly from society for them to win in 2019, but most certainly there was a lot of pressure this time around in 2023. So talk us through the plan that Rassie put together here to say, what was the plan from 2019 up until 2023?
So a couple of things worked in Rassie's favor. The conditions which he worked under were probably the most favorable of any Springbok coach. He was allowed to choose players from overseas. Half of this team probably comes from overseas teams, whether it's France, England, or Japan. That was a shift by SA Rugby to say, be in trouble, bring whoever you can to save the situation. The year before Rassie took over, we had gotten 50 points from New Zealand. We had lost to Ireland, we had lost to a number of nations, and the Springboks were not in a good shape.
Sponsorship-wise, how were they looking though?
Bad,
because
very bad.
It's not just if you don't do well on the field, you also lose sponsors.
The money wasn't there. So it took a couple of sponsors, a couple of big ones, to sit and say, okay, we'll invest in this project. And Rassie was given the job 18 months out to the World Cup. And he basically went around the world, found people like Cheslin Colby's, Dwayne Vermeulen, all these guys who were playing overseas, Faf, all of them, and said, listen, I need you back for the Springboks. And that project became, they said, 2019 is not going to be theirs purely because they did not have the experience. When you look at the teams that have won the World Cup, it's normally a very experienced team. You're looking at about 800 to 1,000 caps in the team. We are far from that.
Yeah.
Sia, our captain, I think barely had 15 caps at that time. Again, that's another leap of faith in Rassie Erasmus to say, you, the least experienced player in the leadership group, you lead this team. He knows him. He brought him to the Western Cape. He brought him to the High Performance Center in Stellenbosch. He knows him from the age of 16, 17. So he had that leap of faith in Sia Kolisi. He got together a group of players and he basically gave them as much experience as he could in a short space of time. And he was allowed to work without any interference, basically.
And my goodness, what a leader Sia has become.
Yeah, also the way Sia leads, Sia does not claim to know everything. He leads by consulting. He says, you have information on this, you bring it to the table. Let's work as a team together and you'll be surprised what we get. Let our differences be our strength. That is the genius of Sia Kolisi. He's never claimed to know everything. He says sometimes I don't know what call to make, but I've got people I can lean on that I trust in the team to make those right calls and they'll advise me. It's trusting the people around you and empowering the people around you to say, you've got a voice, you can say, you can contribute positively to our cause. That kind of leadership has served us well.
Most certainly has. And then where to for the team now? Because we know Ninaba is obviously stepping down. Where to?
The good thing about the structure, it's not going to change much because Russ is still there.
Yeah.
We're losing two important components of this. In Jacques Ninaba, one of the best defensive coaches in the world, he's going to Leinster now in Ireland. We have to find a very good defensive coach because our game plan depends on our defense. We kick the ball away a lot and our defense basically helps us play in the right areas. So we need to recruit whoever we're going to recruit to run the defense. Again, money is not a problem now. At least this team will be funded and they'll be allowed to go wherever they want, to approach whoever they want. So we need to find a good defensive coach. Obviously, Jacques as a head coach has to be replaced. We also need to find a new attack coach. Those three positions, I'm sure Rassie by now would have identified the kind of people that he wants to work with. The fact that Rassie is there means whoever occupies those positions, those are people that can work with Rassie Erasmus as a director of rugby. So again, when you take that into consideration, you're probably looking at someone who's still in the camp or someone who's worked with the camp. But we should be okay. We've got a lot of capable coaches. You've got people like Johan Ackerman who have done very well in England. You've got people like Mzwandile Stick who's been there since the start of this cycle with the squad. You got a lot of Space, for example. Space de Brain was a very good attack coach for the Lions and the Springboks. So there are people and names that we can link to those jobs, but ultimately Rassie Erasmus will have a big say in who comes in, and the fact that he'll be there means we're not going to lose much in terms of structure, the structure that he built.
Thando, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is a sports senior producer Thando Mqoli speaking to us. We shift our focus now to this story. The Commission of Inquiry investigating the cause of the fire at the Usindiso building has been postponed due to safety concerns. This after the City of Johannesburg's Emergency Management Services notified the Commission that the venue does not comply with city bylaws. They require more than one fire exit to accommodate the people attending. Organisers now need to find a larger and more suitable venue for the public hearings. The deadly fire on the 31st of August in Johannesburg's Marshalltown killed 76 people, left dozens injured and hundreds homeless.
Safety concerns have temporarily halted the work of the Commission of Inquiry into the Johannesburg deadly fire. Major media houses were denied access to the venue due to capacity constraints and insufficient emergency exits on day one of the commission. The venue was said to only be able to accommodate 25 people, leaving many media houses frustrated.
As we heard from the Commissioner Kampepe, our clients served the Commission with a notice advising them that unfortunately, due to the fact that the venue did not comply with the requirements of the bylaws, they had to issue a notice to that effect.
The notice of the breach of safety standards was issued by the City of Johannesburg. This comes after the Commission heard all emergency evacuation exits were blocked during the fire which gutted the Usindiso building. The Commission has been given 6 months to investigate the cause of the fire and the prevalence of illegally occupied buildings, better known as hijacked buildings in the city. Balentle Mthethwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Basic Education Minister Entshi Motshekga says the State Security Agency will help prevent the leaking of question papers. She adds that so far there have been no problems reported as the class of 2023 write their first Matric final exam. Motshekga has been speaking at the Rhodesfield School of Specialization in Kempton Park, Ekurhuleni, as Matric examinations kicked off. There are nearly 1 million Matric learners.
It's crunch time for matriculants.
We're just here to wish you well.
The class of 2023 began their first examination. Thousands are expected to sit for the Matric exams.
I'm feeling great, I'm feeling good. It's finally my final exam. I've been waiting 12 years to get over and done with it. So I'm feeling great.
I'm grateful for having the chance to be in Matric, and I hope my parents are proud that I made it.
A lot of people didn't make it. So understanding that I have this opportunity, I'm really grateful.
Almost 800,000 grade 12 learners will sit for the National Senior Certificate Examination in 7,000 centres nationwide.
From the public system, nationally, we're at 779,337. So that's what we have for your full-time. For your part-time, they were at 181,000, which takes us close to about 900,000. Then you calculate your IEB, your independent exams, because they're also sitting for exams, and all other independent exam bodies. And in total, there'll be 1 million young people sitting for exams.
Contingency measures are in place in the event of load shedding and also any breaches in the integrity of the examination process.
We've been working very well with the schools, encouraging them to have backup, power, that is generators. Those that don't have will then, be renting out those generators for them and make sure that there's no disturbances.
The final exams also bring with it nervousness, anxiety, and mental stress.
My biggest challenge was my coping mechanisms, and I couldn't cope, but because of the friends I have, they helped me cope.
Psycho support has been overwhelmingly on the ground. You know that we had a lot of suicides in the province, and what we did was also to sign a mental health awareness pledge to say, in the event of anything, call 116. It's a toll-free number. There are professionals there in a partnership with Childline, to enhance, on a mental note.
The exams are expected to run for 6 weeks, with the last papers written on the 6th of December. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And that's where we leave it for today. Have a wonderful afternoon further.